Greetings, YouTube land. Some of you have probably wondered where I've been, um, but I wanted to make this video. Wanted to kind of discuss something that was just kind of on my mind, and just wanted to talk about it and upload it. Um, Interestingly enough, we live in an interesting time. We're living in a time where it's here. It's here. There's nothing we can do about it. We're living in a time where people are questioning, and the N word now is deconstructing, which you know it's amazing to me how many of us will jump onto fads and we won't take time to question the things that are being pushed out here. Um, a lot of what's pushed out here, and a lot of what the change that is facilitated through what some would call culture creation is done and many times I'm gonna say this, many times it's intentional. It's not something that just happens to happen. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times part of the way that is manipulated and done is by throwing words out there, by throwing and um, by really making those things like a pressing issue, so to speak. Hopefully everybody understands what I'm saying. Like, it became a thing a few years ago. People want to people. The funny thing is, people will protect the lies, and they'll act like, oh, this was talked about back in the '80s. No, it wasn't. Just no, it was not. It not like this. But just like a few years ago, it began to be a thing to talk about white privilege, and people just, I mean, they just hear it and they run with it because they feel like it identifies with their plight and all these other things, and they won't take the time and ask the question: where did these words come from? Who coined these words? And thinking about these type of things is not always conspiratorial. When people hear me a lot of times, sometimes some of them, now there's some that get it, but some of them, the first thing they'll think, oh, this brother's just thinking conspiratorial, conspiracy theory this, conspiracy theory that. We ain't gonna go into you know the fact that where does conspiracy theory come from? The way we use it today, pretty much. It's a weaponized term. It was around before it got weaponized, but it's a weaponized term. But anyway, but the way I look at it and think through these things really is because part of it is me thinking in a foundational sense, and that actually comes from thinking philosophically, not necessarily always thinking conspiratorially, thinking philosophically. And so people need to ask themselves, where does the term white privilege come from? At one point I thought it came from a woman named Peggy McIntosh, but it goes back even further than that and comes from some, if I remember correctly, I can't think of his name right now, but a Russian guy that was here in America that was a radical. It was a communist, and I don't want to use communist like people on the uh, you know I got to use this because these labels are out here, and but let me clarify. I got to use this term. I don't want to, because of how these terms are used. You know, right wing and left wing are weaponized, but hopefully people will understand what I'm about to say. You know, there is a right wing way people use communist, and I'm not necessarily using it that way. I don't think, oh, we're about to be overrun by the communists. Not, that's not. And I'm not trying to be funny. Matter of fact, that's not happening. That's not what's happening. The people that are behind this are the Anglo-American establishment, the Anglo-American world empire. That's who's behind this, and they're not communists. They have in many cases worked with communists. and they have operated in the way, as Carol quickly said, the way many people, many on the right, think the Communist Act. The late Carol Quigley said this in the 60s in his book Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time. But in any event, is the big thing now is deconstructing. And many don't seem to know that this term deconstructing is tied with postmodernism. And postmodernism, making a long story short, it's bigger than this, and it can be hard to get a grasp on, and I'm still trying to get a grasp on it. But basically, it's where we get this belief that there is no absolute truth. You know, there is no absolute truth. It's deeper than that. I'm admitting that it's deeper than that, and I'm still trying to get a handle on it. But a profound text that deals with this is a book that I'm even going to commit myself to, but I have it in my possession. It's called Postmodern Times by Gene Edward Veith, and in there he talks about deconstruction. He talks about deconstructing. Even Dr. Geisler, when he does his in one of his things on the history of Western philosophy, he has a part in there on deconstruction. You see, and um, the aim of a lot of this, if people just really just need to take time and look at it to really examine where all of this is going, so to speak. There are some people that are I don't really think that we need to grab a hold of this word. I really don't. And I didn't think I was going to get on here and talk about this. But I don't think we need to grab a hold of this word. Some people that think that they're deconstructing really are just re examining their faith. The people that are deconstructing are doing what deconstruction is meant to do. They're coming out on the other side, not even Christians. You know, I have someone on my page, that pushes deconstruction, and he has his Bible, but he's far from orthodox. He's far from orthodox. We'll fight you on orthodox Christian teachings with the Bible in his hand, still reading the Bible. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't believe really half of what's there. It appears. Um, but alas, I didn't want to really go too deep into that because I don't like going into things. Um, wow, I don't like going into things while um, while I haven't totally got a hold on them like I want to. Um, but um, I really didn't want to. I really didn't see myself going into that. I really didn't. But what I actually wanted to talk about was this. I actually wanted to talk about the need, considering all these things and all these things that are fighting the church and everything like that, and that are coming against the truth and everything like that are coming against the visible church and everything like that. I can't say it enough. I have other videos on here where I've talked about it, and hopefully, it's been a while since I talked about it. I believe so. It's been some years, I want to say. So hopefully, a more mature Elder Reinhardt is on here talking about what I'm about to talk about, and I don't plan to be long, and that is the need for apologetics. The need for apologetics is definitely needed in the church. Definitely needed. There's a meme I saw on Facebook from Capturing Christianity. I don't know if any of you have heard of them. They're an apologetic group that's on YouTube. Actually, I think it's just a guy that does Capturing Christianity. Um, and so there was a meme I saw him share where, uh, the youth, one of the youth was coming to a youth leader. That's my beautiful wife y'all hear in the background. That was coming to a youth. I'm happy, y'all. Hold on, let me interrupt. I love my wife. Anyway, uh, um, they were asking the youth leader, "How do we know Christianity is true?" And the youth leader responded like we were still back in some other time period and said, "Want some more pizza?" Y'all get that? Are y'all hearing me? Are y'all hearing me? Like we no, we gotta do better than that. We gotta do better than that. And the reason why those youth, some of you that watch me, that will watch this video, and you wonder why I'm going here and everything, and why I'm talking like this, because if you are someone, especially if you are a youth leader, and the youth are coming to you like that, the reason they're coming to you like that is because of stuff that they're being bombarded with. There's a whole lot of and this is I've never seen a time like this. It's an anti-intellectual period, but at the same time, it's a time where people want knowledge. How can that be so, Elder Reinhardt? Let me explain. Let me explain. Wanting knowledge maybe in the early 1900s, or at a certain time period in this country, I won't put a date on it, meant going into the library, digging in some books, really digging in and really trying to get the knowledge. Okay? Um, Today, a lot of these young people don't want to crack open books like that, but they're thirsty to know. So, what's the easiest thing for them to access? YouTube, Facebook. They can learn about any subject they want to learn about. All they got to do is type it in and hit a video. They won't take time to critique who is speaking on the video necessarily, what they're saying, where they're coming from, anything like that. And many of them will run with what they see on YouTube and feel like, uh, they got they done got a hold of something now. And a lot of them don't understand that sifting through information, you have to be prepared to learn to sift through information, or else you'll take anything in. You have to learn how to critically think. You have to learn logic. There's a lot of things you need to learn, or else you'll see that oh, I read it, so it must be true. I have a friend of mine who went through some stages in their life, and we all do. He went through some stages in his life, even in his Christian walk. The brother is a solid brother now. I mean, a solid brother, a man of God. But he was loving God throughout the process. But he went from immaturity, like we all do, to immaturity. But his was a bumpy road because in that process. Hopefully you all are hearing me right. In that process, he went from some heresies. I mean, some heresies to orthodoxy. And I'm talking that with a small O, not a capital O. He went to orthodoxy. Now how did that happen? That's a long story, but I'd probably have to get him on here for a back to eating thing and interview him for you all to hear that part. But he told me that he used to, back when he was getting involved, he got involved Hebrew roots and stuff like that. He told me the way he used to do research is he would look for an article, and then if he found two other articles that said the same thing, then it must be true. Then it must be true. Are you hearing how? And this kind of did something. That's why I repeated myself. Are you hearing how bad that is? Because lies can be repeated. Things that are not true can be repeated. But how many young people out there are like him? Because they don't know how to look through things. They don't know how to research. They don't understand the historical, how to do history or anything like that. They don't understand those things. All they know is they went on YouTube and what they heard something. It sounded like it made sense to them, and therefore they began to run with it. And unfortunately, by the time they run into a believer that knows what they're talking about, they're so heavily invested, their pride and sometimes their bondage. Because by that time, some of them have gotten to stuff to where they are bound now, you know, and they need deliverance. But their pride and their bondage won't let them admit that they was hoodwinked. And my heart hurts because it don't have to be that way. They don't have to go through those things. It doesn't have to happen like that. If churches, uh, uh, if a lot of these churches, because there's some that are doing it, a lot of these churches just got down to business and did what we're supposed to be doing. Stop trying to make, you know, like this a educational feel good experience. That time is past. You know, dark rooms with lights lit up a certain kind of way, concerts every so many weeks, and everything like that. Years of that, years of picking them up and putting them down and dancing and bucking, which I don't have a problem with dancing and bucking and shouting and all that. I really don't. I believe we should celebrate God and everything like that. But my problem is when all of those things happen and people done had 17, 18, 19 years in Christianity and intellectually don't have much to show for it. They don't know basic doctrines. Do you not know? Because I deal with these people. I deal with these kind of people. Do you not know I've literally had. I was telling my wife this morning, and she couldn't believe it. She said, "Are you playing?" I was like, "Baby, I'm serious. I'm serious." Do you not know I've had people in these groups tell me, if Jesus is real, where are his bones? Oh, I pray this video gets out. Oh, I pray this video gets. I want some of y'all to hear that. And some of these were people that grew up in the church and said they was in church, and then some of them say they was in deep and all this other kind of stuff. They ask, and you can survey other people that are involved in urban apologetics. They will confirm that this kind of question gets asked. Where are the bones of Jesus? It's bad enough that they think that you have to have bones to prove that someone historically existed. Like that is like a criteria. That's not even logical. There are people outside of the Bible whose bones we've never found. So, I mean, I, I know someone who died. I know of someone who died tragically. I won't say how, but they died tragically to the point to where nothing was left of them. So use your imagination on how they died. Nothing was left of them. Basically, I think maybe a shoe. So we're gonna say because maybe 200 years from now, no one can find the bones, essentially, that this person never existed. I'm someone who lived and knew the person. We weren't like close, but I knew the person. That they existed, you know. But this is the kind of illogical stuff that people are being fed, you know, and the church needs to embrace something that's always been in the church anyway. Apologetics has always been in the church. It's always in some form. Peter said to be always ready to give an answer to those that ask for the a reason of the hope that lies within you. It's kind of a paraphrase. But the word he used in there for answer is apologia, and that's where we get the term apologetics. In the second century was steeped in apologetics. You had Irenaeus coming against the Gnostics with against heresies. You had people like later on, like Tertullian. You had different people, you know, dealing with apologetics. Apologetics is old. It's old, but because we live in an anti-intellectual time, that climate, a lot of stuff that the church worries about when it comes to worldliness, is not things we need to be totally worried about. The stuff that the stuff that we don't concentrate on, that's where worldliness is creeping in. That's where worldliness is creeping in mostly through our thought processes. Our thought processes in many churches are off. It's off in many churches. This anti-intellectualism is we're taking on something that's going on in the culture. And God tells us in the book of Proverbs to get knowledge, to get understanding, to get wisdom. God, God, and being an intellectual is not the antithesis of spirituality. Listen, a person is not spiritual the way they need to be if they're lazy with their minds. Jesus said to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Again, when the scriptures teach us to get knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in the Proverbs, those aren't suggestions. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and in all you're getting, get understanding when you feel like it. He didn't say that. That's not what he said. That's not the language of the text. We have to quit treating. I'm just going to talk. This stuff is on my mind. We got to stop treating people being intellectual like it's the antithesis of spirituality. We got to. That's a lie that got to die. It has to die. It has to die. Now, people can get so far into intellectualism that they get puffed up and everything. Sure, but if you are doing like the Bible says, and the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, then and you're honoring God with your mind, then there's nothing wrong with you being intellectual. Paul was an intellectual giant. You know, he wouldn't want someone to say that, but he was an intellectual. He was the most intellectual apostle based on what we have recorded. He was the most intellectual apostle. I don't think anybody would argue against that. So we got to stop that because I mean, things are so bad. I was talking to my wife the other day, and we are so anti-intellectual that there's a book, and I believe in deliverance and everything like that. I believe that in the move of the Holy Spirit, the gifts of the Spirit, the ministry gifts, all of that. I believe all of that. I believe it all. I believe all of it. All of those things are still in operation and everything. But in this book, it was treating intellectualism. Excuse me. Literally, it was treating intellectualism like a demon. Now, again, people can get puffed up and everything like that. And if someone gets, I tend to doubt that it would be intellectualism. Some people will listen to this and get mad at me, but I tend to doubt it would be intellectual. I tend to think that the root spirit that would be involved in something like that would be pride. But anyway, that's something we need to do, and I wanted to emphasize, the need of I wanted to emphasize the need of doing more than just aiming at people's heads when we do apologetics. Um, I think considering everything, I may save that for another part for my next video. But we need to do it. Apologetics is the defense of the faith. That's basically what apologetics is, a defense of the Christian faith. That's what Christian apologetics is. And so the next video I do, I may elaborate more a little bit on the apologetic issue and then go into what I thought I was going to talk about in this video. I just had so much, I guess, going on inside. I guess there was more that I needed to talk about. And I guess, and ultimately, I feel like God just led me to go in another direction. So hopefully people hear what I'm saying. Hopefully people will come on here and will watch this, and somebody will get what I'm saying and go back to their church and make the necessary changes. It got to be about discipleship now, y'all. It's supposed to be in anyway. It got to be about discipleship now. You know, you know. Um, Church services need to, especially I would say more so on weekday when you having Bible study. They need to. I mean, it need to get to the point now where either a PowerPoint need to be up there, and people need to be at desks taking notes or something like that. Or if you old fashioned, there need to be a chalkboard up there or something like some sort of board up there. But we need to get down to the nitty gritty. And I'm gonna say this too: Bible study needs to be Bible study. It don't need to be a practical living. Practical living can be on another night. Bible study, people need to learn about the Bible. They need to learn about the history of the Bible. They need to know about the history of the different texts, why different texts were there. They need to know about the genre of different texts. They need to know the languages. They need to know about the languages. I'm not saying you need to be teaching them Hebrew and Greek and all that, but they do need to know if they're going to study the Bible, which they should if they are believers, that they need to have a familiarity with those languages. Now, if they choose to go on to seminary or whatever and learn the languages, that's cool too. But these are crazy times, and we need soldiers out here. We need soldiers out here. We don't need 20-year-old babes in Christ. We need soldiers. So, with that said, hopefully everybody understands where I'm coming from. Everybody have a blessed one. Love you.